Well, welcome back. We are in topic 3. Can you believe it? The year is almost half finished. And so good job to all of you who have kept up and you're getting through this. This is not necessarily easy material because it's causing you to have to do a lot of critical thinking, and that's what we're wanting to achieve is, can we get behind the history and get into thinking of the history? What is motivating us? Remember, we spoke at the very first part of this course and quoted Machiavelli, the idea that because all of humanity in all time, in all places, no matter what their background or culture or religious beliefs, they all have similar passions and similar desires and things that motivate them. Therefore, if we want to understand history, we just have to look at those passions and those things that pushed and moved people everywhere and see the pattern, see that rhythm that history seems to be marching to. And by doing so, we can look at different situations that people find themselves in, look at the problems and the opportunities that present themselves in those situations that have to be weighed. And then from there, people will make decisions, make choices based on those. And those passions, those desires, those needs will be the thing that informs and guides those choices. And if we can follow that through history, we'll have a pretty good understanding of what is the mindset, what might then happen in our future, in your future. How would you see if we're in the middle of voting season right now for 2024. What will your vote mean? What will your choices mean? We look at laws, we look at our propositions, we look at candidates, and we go, I like that one, I don't like that one for our moment. But are we considering what it will cost us, what we will be giving up as far as liberties and rights? Are we going to be electing protections that we're going to grant government power to protect certain rights? All those things come into play, and that cycle of choices is what we're looking at. So topic 3, revolutions in the early 1800s. And our first week, we're going to talk about new ambitions for a new century. So let's get going. We're going to look at cycle choices again for the 1800s and what's going on in the world there. And then we're going to look at some of the ambitions that are happening as far as the new world is considered, North America, Central America, and South America. So what's happening? What's happening? Well, we have Napoleon in France. He's the top dog. He's the first consul. He's looking around for what's next. Britain has kind of done their thing. They have lost to the colonies in the New World. They're trying to find their way again. Where are they going to land? Where are they going to find their empire, so to speak, after losing the colonies? The United States is looking around. What are they going to do? They're a little itty-bitty nothing on just the very east coast of this continent. Where are they going? Where are they heading? How are they going to play with the new kids on the block? Spain, Portugal, these are big players. Not only in the New World, but they're trying to figure out, well, what's going on at home and who's going to be doing what. Those are all the situations that are kind of playing out right at this critical point between the late 1700s moving into the early 1800s. So there's a lot of ambition sort of stirring around. If you look at the New World at 1800, look at how much green Spain controls. All that green is Spain. They control all of that. Portugal is the yellow. There's a mix in the Caribbean. The slave revolt in Saint Domingue is up and running. It's at its height. They have thrown off France by the 1800, and they're kind of going, okay, what do we do with ourselves? The Britain and Dutch and French still have a little flavor and taste in that region. And of course the United States is still trying to figure out what it wants to do with all of that land east or west of the Appalachian Mountains. So What is the situation back in Europe? We kind of saw what it was in the New World, but what does that translate to in the European theater? Well, Spain has a new king, and he is seen as a very weak king. France and Britain look at the Spanish Empire, all of that territory in the New World, and they see it sort of as an opportunity. We have a weak king with a weak empire. I wonder what we're going to do with the Spanish territory in that part of the world. Is it up for grabs? What will we need to put out there, sacrifice in order to gain it? But they're looking at where they're going to make their next major move. So Britain, we're going to talk about Britain first. Britain decides what it's going to do is, since this uproar in Saint-Domingue with the slaves, they're only slaves. We can go back down there and we can take it over, and we can take back, or we can get from France what was once France's most amazing resource in Saint-Domingue. Now, Britain owns or has territory on Jamaica, which is right next door to Saint-Domingue. So they're looking at, well, we can sort of mount an attack in Jamaica and then shift over into Saint-Domingue and attack. And so 1802 they decide to do that. It is an utter failure. The slaves just put them down, spanked them bad. So that's not going to work. In 1806, and then again I tried again in 1807, right around that time, Britain decides it's going to go, well, let's try someplace else. We'll go down to Buenos Aires. We'll go to South America this time and try to attack that way. That is a complete and total failure. Britain has nothing left in itself. No power, no money, no emphasis, nothing to be able to go into the New World and do anything there. So Britain has to reassess its situation. All right, New World, we got spanked by the United States. We got spanked by a bunch of slaves in the Haitian region. We didn't succeed in South America. Maybe this is not the place where we should go. Why don't we return our gaze back east? Let's look back at where we were pretty successful in India, Southeast Asia, and into the Far East Asia. Let's go back to that. We're there, we're good. Let's just kind of like double down and make this super empire for Britain in those regions. And Britain does. That's what they do in the 1800s. They turn their focus from the west back to the east, and that's where they're going to go. What about Napoleon? Well, Napoleon, he's got his situation too. He's looking at where he is. He's kind of got stuff going on in Europe. He's tried to kind of do something in Egypt. That doesn't go too well. And so he's looking for that next victory, that next pat on the back. Because remember, his goal in his mind, his passion that's motivating and informing his decisions is self-glory. He wants to be the emperor. He wants to be even bigger and better than any king that has ever been before. So what does he do? He wants an empire. He wants an empire for himself. France yearns to regain that lost claims in North America. So remember, England beats France, and then all of that territory east of or west of the Appalachians goes to Britain. Well, Britain then turns it over to the colonies, at least the middle, the bottom part, that Ohio Valley region. That all goes to the United States. France has nothing anymore, and France is kind of hurt over that. They're bent to get that back. And if Napoleon can get that back, that will help build his empire. He also wants to gain back Saint-Domingue. If he can get that back, he gets all that riches and that the money and the income, that revenue that's going to come back to France. So that's his goal. Let's make an empire in the New World. But he's got some problems and he has some opportunity. He sees the opportunity that North America is like the perfect place to build his empire. Perfect place. Why? Because Spain is weak. And if Spain is weak, he can take it over pretty well. But he's got some problems. He has some issues. He needs peace in Europe. He has to be able to take his troops from all those fights with the other countries around him that were fighting France at this time, make peace with them so he can get those troops to refocus, relocate to the New World to fight the battles there. So he has to get peace in Europe. He needs to get a foothold somewhere in North America in order to station and build up his troops before he starts to attack. He has to have like a home base in America. He also needs to be able to get his troops all the way across the Atlantic without them being, blown up at sea. Britain and France were still fighting at the time, and Britain had a pretty good navy, so it could mess with all that transport of troops. So he has to get all that done. So what is his plan? Well, his first idea is he needs to create a secret plan with Spain to regain the Louisiana Territory, that big chunk of land that was in that very center part of what is now our United States. He has to gain control of New Orleans. That's that port coming out of the Mississippi, allowing access from the center part of North America down the Mississippi and then out into the Caribbean and back east to Europe. He has to barter, negotiate deals with Britain and with Austria, who he's been fighting forever. And he has to then attack Saint-Domingue and restore French control there, and then he can take the United States, or then he can take North America back again. So he has to get all that done. Well, he does the secret plan with Spain and gains control of the Louisiana Territory again in 1800. He negotiates and arranges deals, treaties in 1801, 1802 with Britain and Austria. So now his troops are free, his focus is free, his armies are free, he's able to get across the Atlantic without getting blown up, and he has this secret deal with Spain to regain control of that region in North America. And if you look right here, this is where his thinking is going. So here's the United States. Here's what is now the United States. The U.S. at this time really just has control of the darker gray region on the East Coast. It has access to that Central Valley where the Ohio River is coming down like this before it goes down south. So that part there, the Ohio Valley River, it has access to that, but it's still very much underdeveloped. And then, of course, if you can get all the way down to New Orleans, then you have all that riches, all the farming, all the fur trade, everything that's coming out of that region can come down the Ohio River, come into the Mississippi River, and be shipped out to the rest of the world without having to cross over the Appalachian Mountains, which was very costly and very difficult to do. It's much easier to go by riverboat. And up to this point, Spain and the United States had kind of a mutual agreement about New Orleans. Spain had given the U.S. access to use New Orleans as a seaport. So with France sort of gaining that control back, the United States is kind of worried. It has some problems, but of course, Napoleon's looking at it going, ha ha, I got North America back. Again, this is just another part. If he can gain New Orleans, then he gains that northern area. If he can get United States, he has complete access where all of the products that are coming down the Ohio Valley into the Mississippi, they can be brought back up into the major ports and cities on the East Coast, made into different kinds of manufactured goods, and or shipped very easily to wherever Napoleon may want to ship it to make good money. It would be an excellent deal. But the United States is too weak to fight France. There is no way that the United States can actually beat Napoleon. They know they can't beat him. So they're kind of shivering in their boots, wondering what's going to happen when they get word that Napoleon's gotten Louisiana Territory back. He makes the peace deals, as I said, in 1801, 1802, and he is now ready to rock and roll. However, his attack on Saint-Domingue fails. I mean, it fails badly. Tens of thousands of French troops come in. There are Polish troops that help aid him in attacking, and they fail. It is a horrible loss. And so Napoleon in 1803 is sitting there kind of, with his tail between his legs, going, my endeavors, my ambitions in the New World have completely failed. It has cost me a lot. So, like Britain, he's got to sit back and go, okay, well, what is my now new situation? What are my options? What are some problems? What are opportunities that are popping up? And he is going to have to say, I have to let go of the New World. It would be better for me to focus on Europe again and make Europe, all of Europe, my empire, than it would be to have to cross half of the world, half of the globe, in order to take these other territories. It wasn't that everybody agreed with him, but that was his decision. So in 1803, he abandons his campaign in the New World, and he focuses his empire on Europe. Part of that decision is, well, let me sell what I just gained. Let me sell the Louisiana territory. And so he sells it, it's kind of like out of the blue, to the United States. And why would he do that? He needs revenue, he needs money, he needs to recapture stuff. And there's the United States going, hey, we'll buy it. Thomas Jefferson brokers a deal, even though he may not have the constitutional power to do so. He does it anyway. Later on, Congress kind of goes, says, yeah, okay, we'll let you slide on this one. It was a good deal. And so the United States gains twice its territory. And we're going to come back to what happens with that. But now Napoleon is free of his responsibilities and ties with the New World. He's able to look back into his European theater and create some pretty nasty stuff in that area and make France, hopefully, in his mind, a great empire in the world. So what does that do then for America? What does it do for the United States? Well, take a look at where we were. I had this up a little bit ago. This is 1790, and that the darker the gray, the more populated it is. So as you can see, by 1790, there's not a whole lot west of the Appalachian Mountains. That the Ohio River is still there. It's in the dark blue all the way down to New Orleans. But look at what happens as we move through time. How does America's focus change? So look at the population and where people are settling and making new towns and stuff. This is 1810. So this is 20 years later. This is 7 years after Bonaparte gives or sells Louisiana territory to the United States. That is a big shift. By 1820, now that Ohio Valley is pretty densely populated. We are, as Americans, are really starting to settle there. Kansas is starting to pop up, places like that. And as we go into 1830, now that entire river valley all the way down into Mississippi, now it's under American control, and people are moving in that westward direction. With that movement, with those new opportunities, new crops, new land, new grazing, new business opportunities, now comes a new American focus. Rather than looking back to mother country, to England and to France and those areas to the east, now America has a new focus. They're now looking towards the west. What is out that way? What are we going to gain that way? And with that new focus comes we spoke about it briefly in our last video, this idea that we're going to take the American ideal, its democracy, its Christian values, its morality, its goodness, and we're going to bring it into this new world, this new territory of the West. And we're going to bring all of our greatness and goodness, our manifest destiny into that particular region. And so that is what it does. That's what the American people do. So that there's a lot of shifting going on, a lot of attempts and tries, and who's going to do what when looking at that new situation, trying it out, particularly in the New World. Things have to reset, go into a different direction. France can't do what it wants to do. Britain can't do what it wants to do. So now France is going to look to Europe, Britain's going to look towards the Far East and into the Southeast, and we're going to get a lot of movement in that direction, and we're going to incorporate these other non-Western civilization countries into our discussion as we move forward. First, we're going to look at Napoleon's efforts for his new world order, his new empire in Europe, and see how that works out. And that will take us into next week's lecture. So get ready. We got a lot to cover. See you next week.